All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Gender and Society class. This will be your lesson two. Again, this is part of the 5-lesson introduction about gender and society. So this is going to be very simple. Our discussion will be more on only uh, terms and definitions of the gender and society related words. Okay, now let's start our presentation. Okay, now, so as you can see here, for our lesson two will be more on gender, role, and socialization. We are not going to discuss here in this lesson on how socialization affects gender role, but we will just I will just give you more on heads up if what could be the factors that could consider on benefiting your gender role from your society and how do you handle those stuff. So of course, gender role and socialization, there are set of social and behavioral norms that are generally considered appropriate for men and women in social or interpersonal relationship. So from the word appropriate for men and women. So this is something that it's either the community or the surroundings of yours is expecting of you or from you to your in relation to your gender role, or this is how you foster your gender role based on your socialization or based on your social construct. Okay, now let's start with one of the theories, which is symbolic interaction theory at a glance. Okay, so SIT or symbolic interaction theory is a frame of reference for how humans create understanding through symbolic worlds and how those worlds affect human behavior. Okay, so let's dig in more on this. Okay, so symbolic meaning that people develop and rely upon in the process of social interaction, and subjective meaning that people impose on objects, events, and behaviors. Or quote, definition of the situation is what people use to know what is expected of them and what is expected of others in a situation. So this is how, okay, this is how you interpret, this is how you absorb, this is how you define the languages and objects on your surrounding. When I say languages, it's not just the language that, how you speak or what type of language. Is it English, American? No, it is how the communication affects you. Okay, object meaning it's either the people, your routinary actions, the routinary actions of the people around you, the approach or the style of how do they behave around you, how they approach you, and how they go with you as you grow old or as you grow up. So the bottom line of symbolic interactionism is really more on you have the power or you have this cognitive aspect wherein you can really interpret, define subjectively whatever happens in your surrounding. Okay, communication wise. Okay, or maybe more on the object wise, like the procedures on how people flow around you, or how were you developed in accordance to your proximity zone. So symbolic interactionism is really like that. So from the word symbolic, then interact. Okay, so subjective interaction on the symbols around you, on the cues, communication, okay, actions, behaviors, traditions, cultures, and so on and so forth. So that is how symbolic interactionism acts. So in relation to your gender, okay, one of the reasons why your gender is molded in that way or your gender role is applied in that way, it's because of how subjectively you define your situation around you. Okay, how do you see situations around you? How do you see different perspective around you? How do you interpret situations around you, so on and so forth? So that's how symbolic interactionism goes with. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, since you are already in college, okay, how did you become like that in the gender perspective? How did you act like that as masculine, feminine, as male or female. Okay, so how do you act like that? All right, so that's just really a matter of questioning yourself. What have you been through for the past years? What are the symbols that you've interpreted? What are the subjective interpretation or approach that you've made that made you who you are right now? So that's symbolic interactionism. All right. Okay. So you try to ask yourselves about that. It's not something that you should answer on the comment section, but it's like ask yourselves. Okay, because maybe by asking yourself, you can come up with something that is, you know, an explanation of who and what you are as of the moment. All right. Okay, now for the gender cognitive development. Okay, cognitive means how your brain processes and how your brain works. Okay, so for example, okay, now for gender schema theory by Martin and Halverson, 1981. Okay, gender is acquired by gathering information about our own gender, but this happens before gender constancy. Okay, now let me explain more about what gender constancy is. Okay, so gender constancy is a child, okay, knows that whatever her or his sex is and gender, that will be the constant gender that he or she will have. That's why there are parents, when they see their sons act like feminine or move in the most feminine way, dancing in some girl group whatsoever, um, music, they really thought that they will really be part of the LGBT community, or they will be so-called bakla or gay. Okay, but however, in gender constancy, it defies. Okay, it go against on that concept, because whatever the child is doing right now, it is still under gender labeling. Okay, the child by that time is still discovering what are the roles of male and female. Okay, how should a male and female act, something like that. So gender constancy defies that perspective, that kind of insight, that when your kid is acting on the opposite of whatever their sex or gender is, they will become part of the LGBT when they grow up. No, it's not like that. Gender constancy says no, that's not true. That's not it. Okay, because by that time children are still developing their gender labels. Okay, they are still having this typical children, they're still discovering things. Okay, that's why we cannot predict someone's gender based on how they act when they were still very young. Okay, that's gender constancy. And gender schema applies, okay, um before gender constancy. Okay, so it means that from the word acquired by gathering information, that's the process of young ones to develop their gender by gathering what it is. Okay, what are the acts that a male should be or a female should be. Okay, that is dictated, or not really dictated, but that is, sort of like prescribed, should I say, by the culture, by your surrounding. Again, going back to social constructs and symbolic interactionism. Okay, so being able to identify oneself as a girl or boy is enough for us to get involved in gender appropriate behaviors. That is why gender label during the young age before gender constancy is very crucial and important, because whatever the young kid, or should I say the kid, okay, or the young ones are doing, it's not something that they already know. That's really the gender appropriate behavior. They just don't have any idea. They're very young technically. Okay, so that's why gender constancy is going against the concept of parents that whatever their child is doing at the young age, that will be who they are. Gender based, huh? Gender based. That's gonna be who they are when they grow up. All right. Okay. So gender schemas are building blocks of knowledge we have about each gender. Okay. So that's really knowing the appropriateness of how male and female should really behave. Okay. Also, gender schemas can be made up of stereotypes we have about men and women. That's true, because as what I've said, that's symbolic interactionism. That is socially constructed. So, for example, okay, a very simple analogy, like a kid is living in a place where um, men are labeled as matipuno and no crying. Okay, and female as labeled as someone na demure, mahinahon, and so on and so forth. Okay, those are stereotypes, honestly. Those are examples of stereotypes, which we will have a more specific discussion on the upcoming lessons. Okay, so by those stereotypes around that kid, okay, gender schemas can be made on that. They will have this idea that, oh, as per my society, man is acting this way. And as per the society, women is acting this way. So examples are behaviors, clothings, roles, etc. So gender schemas becomes less rigid with experience and knowledge. Okay. All right. Okay, so if you have any more questions about this matter, you can always ask it on what I've instructed with you on my class. You can ask it on the Facebook group, okay, comment section on the link that I'm going to paste there. All right, okay, so this is your lesson 2. And of course, well, if you have any more questions, you can always do that. And of course, follow or subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the ring bell buttons for more notification and updates. Thank you.